Hola estudiantes, este es el video del tema 12.2, Formal Commands or Commands with usted and ustedes. So first of all, I would like to review or recap a little bit with you guys because I want you to establish this relationship between English and Spanish. In English, whenever we want to give a command, it usually doesn't have many changes in the way that we structure the statement. I mean the phrase. But in Spanish, we do have to make some changes. So first of all, you have to remember that to give commands is basically that we're talking directly to the person and telling that person to do something, okay? So that is why we have the forms do or the forms usted or ustedes, because we are addressing to the person, we are telling that person to do something. Now in English, what we do is that we usually omit the subject. So for example, in a regular statement, when I'm saying that you eat, I'm going to say, you eat cereal, right? Whenever I want to give you the command to eat your cereal, I'm going to remove the subject and I'm going to go ahead and say, eat your cereal. I'm not going to say, you eat your cereal, because those two statements have different functions. Now, in Spanish, it doesn't work the same way. We have to make further changes, okay? So the verb changes a little bit, and that is letting me know that I'm giving you a command. Now, we have already discussed the commands in the informal setting. Now we are talking about the formal commands, okay? So let's go to the next one, talking specifically about the formal commands. Now, here you have a chart, and I really want you guys to study this chart because this is going to help you figure out the form that you are going to use with these usted or ustedes commands, okay? So if you can see over here, we have the verb limpiar, and then along with the present tense, your form is going to be limpio, but the command is going to be limpie, okay? Now, it's going to go from, if we want to talk about the present, it's going to be ella limpia or él limpia, and so on. However, if we look at the command, it's going to be limpie. It's not going to be limpia, okay? So pay attention there. In the command, it's going to change the structure of the verb. So in here we have limpie, and in the plural form is going to be limpien. Barrer, barra, barran. Sacudir, sacuda, sacudan. Decir, diga, digan. So in here you can see that decir is a stem changing verb, and we can see that that irregularity or that change still remains in the command, okay? Pensar, same thing, another irregular or stem changing verb, and then we're going to see that change over here as well. Piense, piensen. Volver, vuelva, vuelvan, servir, sirva, sirvan. Now, remember that these commands over here and over here, we are talking about asking someone to do that, okay? So that is why it's going to be different, the conjugation, talking about the person performing the action than or versus the command, which means that you want that person to perform that action, or you're asking that person to perform that action. Okay, so here we are. Here we have some of the endings, but I know these might be a little bit more complicated than just looking at the chart, okay? But basically, this slide is telling us that for AR verb, we're going to add E or EN, and for verbs ending in ER or IR, they are going to change to A or AN, okay? we are talking about singular over here, plural, singular, plural. Okay, so if you really look at the chart, probably this is not going to be so complicated, or I'm hoping that at this point you guys are comfortable with changes that we have to, talk about in all these grammar topics. So hopefully you guys see a pattern and this is easy for you to remember. Now, as always, we have irregularities, okay? So if we are talking about your verbs that were irregular at some point, of the conjugation, whenever we have talked about irregular verbs, they are going to keep that same irregularity with the commands, okay? So I was telling you about the stem changing verbs over here that keep that stem change over here. So this is going to be the same. I don't know if at some point you remember that at some point I talked about the yo-go forms. Sometimes we call these verbs yo-go because we want to remember that these verbs add go in the yo form only, okay? And this is only a way to remember this. For example, the word or the verb tener becomes tengo. Oír becomes oigo. Salir becomes salgo. And this is only for you to remember that sometimes this happens with some specific verbs and they are going to keep that same irregularity with commands, okay? These verbs include conducir, conocer, decir, hacer, ofrecer, oír, poner, salir, tener, traducir, traer, venir, and ver, okay? And here we have some examples. From oír, we are going to have oiga, Don Manolo. Salga inmediatamente. Now in these two, I'm still talking about singular, a singular person. Ponga la mesa, por favor. Still singular. However, over here, hagan la cama antes de salir. This one is plural, okay? So you have to watch for the times that I'm giving a command to only one person versus when I'm giving the command to several people. As I mentioned before, whenever we have a stem changing verb, we will keep that change whenever we give a command, okay? So in here we have, just as a reminder, we have three groups of stem changing verbs. The ones that have an E that goes to IE, the ones that go from O to UE, and the ones that go from E to I, okay? So that's why it's so important that you guys let me know if you have any questions, because these are topics that we talked about in previous lessons. If you guys do not remember, or if you want some more practice about those in order for you to, catch up, please do not hesitate to let me know and I can help you out, okay? So going back to those three groups of stem changing verbs, we can see that happening here, and we see a few examples. No pierda la llave, which comes from perder. Cierren la puerta, which comes from cerrar. You see that from E went to IE. Vuelva temprano, joven, comes from volver. Duerman bien, chicos, viene de dormir. Sirva la sopa, por favor. Servir. Repitan las frases. Repetir. Okay? Same thing in here with the verbs ending in car, gar, or sar. If they have a change that we have already talked about, they will keep that change when we use these in commands as well. Sacar will be saque or saquen. Remember, we are talking about singular over here and plural over here. Jugar, juegue, jueguen. Almorzar, almuerce, almuercen. So we can see that same irregularity happening with the commands in singular or plural. These verbs also have an irregular formal command, and these I will really suggest you to study the chart and just remember the way that they go, because these are irregular and there is no pattern or no clear pattern that we can follow. Okay, so these I will ask you to put a little bit more time into these ones because these are going to be irregular. Dar becomes de or den. Estar becomes esté or estén. For example, I want to tell you to be calm, okay? Which would be in infinitive, estar tranquilo, to be calm. And I'm giving you the command, please, be calm, everything is going to be fine. Esté tranquilo. If I'm talking to two people or more, estén tranquilos. Please be calm. Everything is going to be okay. Ir, vaya, vayan. I just imagine I'm talking to someone, to the parent of one of my students. I'm going to say, vaya a la biblioteca. Go to the library and pick up the ID. For example, vaya a la biblioteca. If it's two of those, if two parents, vayan a la biblioteca. Go to the library, but of course I'm showing some form of respect in that command that I'm giving. Saber, sepa, sepan. Ser, sea, sean. Okay? So just a final example, I want to, I'm talking to my two little brothers and they are fighting, and I want them to be smart about it and, stop fighting. I don't know, some situation like that. I'm going to say, sean inteligentes. Be smart, don't fight, okay? Sean inteligentes. So those are just a few examples for you to remember how to use the formal commands. Or in this case, actually I would like to mention or to add, usted, remember that is specifically for formal. However, ustedes, it's not necessarily formal. It can be formal, but it can also be informal. Ustedes is just a way that we use in Latin America to talk about a group of people, and in English it would be whenever we use you all, okay? Whenever we want to give a negative command, whenever we want to say don't eat, don't leave, don't cheat, whatever in those lines, we are going to place no before the verb, okay? So we're going to follow the same structure, the same way to turn my statements into commands, and instead, since this is going to be negative, I'm going to place no in front. No ponga las maletas en la cama. Don't put the suitcases on the bed. No ensucien los sillones. No comas pizza todos los días. Don't eat pizza every day. No tomes mucho refresco. Don't drink too much soda. So I threw in here a couple of informal commands, but in the formal way it's also going to be the same way that we conjugate, just throwing that no in front. No venga tarde. Don't come late. Remember, we are using the formal commands as well. No escriba en el libro. No, do not write on the book. So I also want to mention that whenever we have reflexive, indirect, and direct object pronouns, they are also always going to be attached to the end of the verb. And finally, if these are negative commands, they are going to be in front of the verb.